Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan. I'm excited to dive into this sample sent to me by my buddy Matt today. This is, I'm generally speaking, a big fan of the way that rye whiskey mellows out with maturation. When you let a rye whiskey sit in a barrel for, 10 plus years, and that spice mellows out and gives way to those yellow fruit notes, I'm a big fan of that. I have the Whistle Pig 18 year there on my shelf, which I'm a big fan of as well. And today we're going to be diving into the Barrel Seagrass. This is the 12-year Gray Label Rye. And this is 100% sourced Canadian rye whiskey. The Canadians know a thing or two about mellowing rye whiskey. They have a knack for it. Now, if you're not familiar with Barrel and what they do, their whole thing, per their name, is really investing heavily in understanding the contribution that a barrel can make to the flavor profile of a whiskey. So flavor creation happens at every stage of whiskey making, from picking your mash bill, the grains that you're going to be using, to the mash process, and if it's sour mash or sweet mash, and then the way that you then distill it, before that, your fermentation even matters. What yeast strains are you using? Talk to Four Roses about that. And then after that, you're going to distill it. Are you going to do a pot still? Are you going to do a column still? Where are you going to make your cuts, your heads, your tails? And then after that, the barreling, the position in the warehouse. Flavor creation happens at every stage of whiskey making. And Barrel is leaning into one part of flavor creation heavily, and that is the barrel's contribution to the flavor profile of a whiskey. Now, it is generally like rule of thumb in the industry that the barrel is the number one biggest contributor to flavor in a whiskey. Second to that would probably be your grains, your mash bill. Are you using rye, using corn, or using barley, using a blend of those things? But Barrel is saying, hey, let's zero in on the barrel and see what crazy things we can do. So they're sourcing whiskey and then they're finishing it in different barrels. So this is 12-year Canadian rye whiskey. It is finished in 3 different kinds of barrels. You have Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy. Now that has me very intrigued because apricot is a flavor that it's a note that I often get on well mellowed out matured rye anyways. These yellow fruits start to come forward with age, and apricot is something I very commonly get on more matured ryes. So I think this is actually going to be pretty banger. So this comes in at 133.34 proof, so it's pretty high in the proof point. Now, one thing to note, so this Seagrass barrel went through a few different iterations. In 2021, so we had a mix of Canadian rye and American rye that were blended. And that was around $80 a bottle. And then in 2022, it jumped up, skyrocketed, $250 a bottle, 12-year only Canadian rye. Only 12-year Canadian rye in that bottle. And then this year, they dropped it down to about $150 a bottle, and it's still 12-year Canadian rye. Now, I think what happened, if I had to guess, what happened was a situation where, they put a product out that they were proud of at $80, and then they upped the quality of it, and then I think they overshot. I think they overshot the price point at $250. But what you needed, because that's a dramatic increase from $80 to $250. So they brought that price point back down so they can move more of this Seagrass product, get people interested in it, make a good reputation, and then maybe they can increase the price again later down the road, or maybe they'll stay at the $150. I don't know. But either way, they needed to move more of that product. They dropped the price. Now, I have to mention, I'm wearing a brown and orange plaid today because on my last video, one of the comments was a gentleman who went out of his way to let me know that orange is not my color and I look very not hot in it. So I'm wearing orange today. Alrighty, looky here. Here is our finished 12-year rye whiskey, apricot brandy, Madeira, and also rum finish. These, I think, are going to be flavors that are going to play really well with a well-mellowed out rye, but we shall see. And that proof point is coming front and center. I mean, on the nose, there's plenty of that 130 plus proof. Very noticeable. But once your nose sort of acclimates to the alcohol, you get a nice mellow spice. I get nutmeg, a hint of cinnamon, plenty of oak intertwined with yellow fruits like apricots and peaches. A bright and beautiful nose on that for sure. I really have to look for the rum But if I'm thinking about it and I'm looking for it, I can find it in there just a little bit. It's not front and center. I'm noting the viscosity here as well. Rolling it around in the glass leaves these thick, juicy runs coming down the side of the glass. Look at all that. Look at it all. A thick and viscous rye is something that we're not traditionally used to. Cheers, let's try it. Wow. Initially on the palate, maple, front and center, gives way to thicker, deeper molasses notes. And then it transitions into your cinnamon spice and ultimately ends up in those fruity notes that come front and center. Less apricot-y, more like raspberries and cream. I think of like a raspberry cheesecake on the finish. Holy cow, that finish is chilling. Like, it is not one and done. It is not gone quickly. It hangs out. It clings for that viscosity to the sides of your mouth. Yeah, there's 100% the journey that it takes you on. It starts you out with molassesy rum, and then there's a quick drive-by through the spice period with the cinnamons and the nutmegs. And then you end up this long, drawn-out, bright fruit finish with those raspberries and cream. Dang, that is exceptional. And we went through this period in American whiskey history not too long ago where this idea of blending whiskeys was really looked down on. People looked down their noses on blending. And it's probably because of the way that a lot of companies started to do cheap blending and cutting corners on costs to blend to try and create shortcuts to different flavor profiles. But that does a huge disservice to the rich history of blending whiskeys, which honestly goes into blended Scotch whiskeys are like the most sold whiskeys on the planet. And that's what it is. They have this whole idea, this rule called reciprocity in Scotland, where Scottish distillers share barrels with one another because they're constantly blending each other's barrels to come up with the specific flavor profiles that they're after. With reciprocity, they have access to a ton of different products out there. Then you've got the Canadians up there who meticulously blend, and it's not something that they just go into the lab and they start dumping stuff in. They're like, that's good. No, we're talking like several months, over a year, 2 years of meticulously mixing and matching things to try and get just the right blend going for what you're after. They take great pride in it. There's a Canadian phrase that I see sometimes in the books that I read on whiskey where they say, blended is splendid. I have to agree. This is splendid. What a great journey that takes you on. I'm going to be real. I don't know. But that Whistle Pig 18 year, it's Canadian rye, and it's friggin' delicious. I think this one has a lot more complexity to it than that one does. That one just executes on mature rye. There's no finishing in special barrels. It's just Canadian 18-year rye, well mellowed, beautifully crafted. This has more complexity to it. It's trying to bring some other things to the table. What a killer pour. If I have to give this a rating today, I'm going to give it an 8.8. This is exceptional. This took me on a wonderful journey, right? The cost of entry to get a bottle of this is pretty high. But I can tell you that that's something that you're going to want to have sitting on your shelf, and take a little pour, just an ounce here and there, You have some special company come over. You have a special thing you want to celebrate, an anniversary. One of your kids graduates college. Hey, that's the kind of thing you break something like this out for a pour. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by the channel today. If you enjoyed the video, hey, let me know by leaving a like on it. Consider subscribing for additional whiskey content. Be warm and well fed, my friends. Cheers. May you live richly and get better with age. Like whiskey. Bye-bye.